Step this way for the Spanish Inquisition. Just a little coffee talk, okay, like butter.
And now, broadcasting live on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network, this is Elevation 5280 Sports with Matt Mascarenhas.
Want me to invite Matt?
Yeah, the whole gang. Matt included.
The Denver freaking Nuggets are the number one seed in the Western Conference, and they are coming for that you-know-what. There is nothing that can stop this team. Strap in with me. It is time to watch a Denver Nuggets championship run.
And Michael Spillane.
All work and no play makes Michael a dull boy.
Yeah, I'm excited for this Denver Nuggets playoff push. I'm excited for the rest of the season, but Matt, they cannot be losing to teams like Orlando on the road, like Memphis on the road, but I'm excited either way, and it is going to be a fantastic finish. They are almost in the exact same championship window the Avs were in last year. And speaking of the Avs, do not count them out just yet.
Matt's an okay dude, but he's a dummy.
Michael! Oh, that's funny. Michael!
Now, Matt and Michael are on.
Welcome back into Elevation 5280 Sports here on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network, as we are with you live every Sunday morning. And as you hear my voice squeak and crack throughout this entire show, Matt, as this cough has been hanging around for what is today? March 19th. So at least 2.5 years now. So that's what we got going on. No, you were talking about having a cough as well, barely having a voice in the mornings, and it's almost the end of March. What is this?
I know, man. This recent cold snap that we went like 60-degree days, freaking great. And then it's like 18, 12 degrees in the mornings, and it's not even warmer. Like the past 2 days, we barely got above 40. And it's just wreaking havoc on me. I got to drink a bunch of tea in the morning to get my mouth all, or my vocal cord, my voice all ready to go. And it's been really annoying, man. But I mean, I'm not going to complain because I hear all those people, you live in Colorado, dude. What do you expect to be cold? I get it, but it's almost freaking April, man. Come on, get up already.
Yeah, it's annoying and it's frustrating, but we are here with you and for you. Make sure you go and like and subscribe all the socials. Go ahead and like the Rocky Mountain Sports Network on Facebook, as the title so it does explain itself, Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Follow on Twitter as well, at Rocky Mountain as well on Twitter. And you can do it on Instagram as well. You can follow Matt, I should say, on Twitter, at Matt Mascarenhas1. You can follow myself, at Michael Spillane. You can follow our show at 5280 Sports Radio. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. It's the same name, at 5280 Sports Radio. Once again, the Instagram for Rocky Mountain Sports Network is Rocky MTNSN. On Twitter, RMS Sports Network. And I just went through all the other Twitter verses as well. But Matt, we are here. It is the middle of March, which means it is the madness that is March, and we're all caught up and down to the round of 32. All of these games, Matt, will get going today. And how about this? After the first day, Matt, there were only 23% of perfect brackets because there were so many busted brackets because of these number 16 and number 15 seeds knocking out number 1, 2s and stuff like that. And it was crazy because it had only been done once for a 16 to beat a 1, and I want to say that was last year, if memory serves. And then it happened again this year. So have you been keeping up on this? Have you filled out? How many brackets did you do? I only did one this year, Matt. To be honest with you, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, especially with NFL free agency and stuff like that still going on. But what did you make of some of these teams? I mean, FDU will be playing. I don't know if I've ever would have said this sentence. ever. But number 16, FDU, and this is the round of 32, trying to buy a ticket for the Sweet 16 against number 9, Florida Atlantic.
Yep. That's just, I mean, think about that matchup too. It's like you run into that matchup after you're thinking that top seed's just going to blow through. You look at that bracket, because if I'll answer that question real quick, I didn't fill out a bracket this year. I was kind of like, I got a bunch of brackets, and then I was gonna get involved in one. And I remembered the last time I filled out a bracket, I didn't fill one out last year. This is like the second year in a row that I didn't fill out a bracket. And the biggest reason why is because I just, it's like this stuff happens, man. You get that one freaking that like you said, that bust your bracket, and then it's done the rest of the time. And I got so stressed out with that, with thinking about the damn. I used to feel like 3 or 4. I used to go crazy this time of year, and I just stopped. I had to do it, man. I had to stop, but because it just ruins your bracket, like you were saying. It's just now you got a top or a low seed playing another low seed, and then now you're going to have that bracket's going to be screwed up because those two teams are going to go on, and then that you had a higher seed going on. It's just stressful and a freaking nightmare. Some people love it, but I backed out of it. I was done. I'll watch them. And as a matter of fact, I've been enjoying the women's tournament this year, and then also we had the collegiate wrestling champion, or that stuff that all went on. So it was a pretty big weekend, and I found myself. I'm not saying I didn't watch the men's tournament, but I found myself watching the women's tournament a little bit more. A lot more upset, not a lot of upsets there. More, who's going to win is supposed to win kind of situation. But huge weekend, especially with collegiate athletes, NCAA for sure.
Yeah, so I only did one. I understand, honestly, not doing one. Logged into the old FanDuel Sportsbook as well. Built a couple 10 to 12 leg parlays.
Nice.
$10 bets, $1,500 cash outs. Obviously, I'm still here this morning, so I did not win any of those. So
not yet.
But I will tell you this: I traded in the car. Got a new truck yesterday, Matt. So
nice, congratulations.
We're turning some chapters, moving back to Colorado. So that's exciting. It's good to have a truck again. I haven't had a truck in about 8 years since my last one got totaled. So I know it's like trader-esque to trade in a Subaru in Colorado, but it had to happen. So we're turning pages, Matt, just like we're turning pages here in the Mahad. Would you be at all interested in? I think it's over for the games at Ball Arena, but would you ever catch a NCAA tournament game at Ball Arena if you had the option?
Yeah, I used to go to them. I think I'm not going to say it was the last time they were here, but it was in the mid 2000s that when they came. I'm trying to remember. There was a big game that happened that I was there at that game. Yeah, I used to go when they'd have the opportunity to get here. I'd get the packs, I'd get the tickets. The company I used to work for would actually get tickets. We were a big sponsor of March Madness, so I used to go when I could, and it was some of the funnest basketball to watch. It reminded me a lot of the state tournaments, because you buy a pack or a block of hours, and you just a block of games, I should say, and you sit there and you watch those games. You get up, go walk around, and get back, sit down, watch another game. So yeah, it's one of the funnest experience watching a game, a professional or collegiate, whatever it is, event that I've had. It's fun. Have you been to one?
No, I honestly haven't even been to. I don't know when the last time I was even at Ball Arena. Maybe last year for an Avs game. I don't remember, but I know I haven't been to an NCAA game. I was listening or reading something that a couple years ago, or maybe the last time that it was probably the Pepsi Center back at that point, but the crowds were just not good. It was like a high school game trying to fill an arena or something like that. But what I was hearing this last weekend, Matt, you couldn't even get a ticket. It was all sold out. So that's good to hear.
And they're expensive too, because I looked. I wasn't like, I didn't have big intentions to get one, but they were expensive. They're pretty pricey.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially at the old SAC, where I don't know if you've heard this either. but they did settle the lawsuit between Comcast and Altitude, but
Yeah.
still can't watch anything.
So they didn't settle anything. So that's like, it's a moot point to us, the viewers, right?
So what I was reading is that they settled, but they're still not going to air anything because Homeboy, aka Stan Kroenke, doesn't want to pay the lawyer fees or something weird.
Yeah.
I forgot what it is. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but a lot of people are saying blame Altitude. A lot of people are saying blame Comcast. I think the blame can go all around. But Stan Kroenke does have the title of cheapest billionaire. So, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if you saw this too, that Bally Sports is now bankrupt, and Bally Sports, I guess, they listed all the teams that they broadcast, and I'm just curious. Like, I don't understand, for me, that they don't have a full-on streaming app yet. And I know that the NBA licensing and stuff, I can understand kind of sort of all of that stuff. I know there's stuff you have to go through, but if you're going to be this tight ass with it and this just monetize it and make a bunch of money off it, I would rather pay $25 or $30, whatever it is, to watch for an app to where I know I can watch Nuggets and Avs games and puts the other stuff on there too, fishing, whatever the heck other stuff you have on your network. I would rather pay that than pay a $70 subscription for Fubo to just watch Altitude, because Fubo sucks. That app sucks. I had what was that one that just the Evoca? That was a good one, because I mean that was good. It was inexpensive. It was good, but I don't know why. I don't know where that's off. I mean, I see the UFC. They've done it with ESPN. Like, where's that happening? I don't understand why we're not going that route. If we can't get this figured out, why we don't go that route?
Yeah, it's just been a crazy mess for the last 4 years now, Matt. 4 years we haven't been able to watch at least the regular season. Hey, but the playoffs are rolling around, so at least we'll get to watch both of the Nuggets and Avalanche. Hopefully, progress in the playoffs, because they'll be nationally televised. So at least we'll be able to do that. But yeah, man, it's crazy that the how many brackets were busted so early. Zero perfect brackets remain, and like I said, after the first day, only 23. It was some decimal number, and me and decimals don't get along, so I couldn't tell you what it was, but it was around 23% of perfect brackets remained. And then I think after the second day, Matt, zero perfect brackets remained. And I did fill out it was like $1 million perfect bracket thing on, it was either MGM or FanDuel, whatever it was. But the parlays are fun. Do you partake in the parlays at all?
Oh yeah. Oh, I love parlays. I did, and I would do college basketball. I haven't got in on the March Madness ones yet, but I have in the past parlayed a couple NBA games with some college games, and then I love to do same game parlays. Do you get into those too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was making a lot of money on the Nuggets, Joker, and Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. I was making a lot of money on those in-game, same-game parlays until recently, but I'm sure we're going to get into that freaking crap. But yeah, I love the parlays. I love the same-game parlays, and the most money I've ever made. I sound like such a degenerate talking about this right now, but gambling with FanDuel in particular has been on those parlays. Like, it's never been, just a one game bet or a money line bet, and that's it. It's always been parlays.
Yeah, because they're fun, and if you hit, then you could potentially have a pretty good payout. But yeah. So obviously, I didn't win yesterday. I hit on almost all of them except for it was Tennessee Duke, and part of the parlay was over 128.5 points, and they finished with about 117. So that was the only one I missed on. Otherwise, probably wouldn't be sitting here this morning. Might be up in Blackhawk or something. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
You gone?
But there it is. Speaking of the sack, Matt, speaking of Ball Arena, the two inhabitants are the Nuggets and Avalanche. First of all, Matt, the Avs have been back on track. They are just dominating this recent road trip. I don't know if you remember what I said last week on this kind of East Coast Canadian swing that they were on, Matt, but because they went to Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, and then yesterday in Detroit. Sorry for your little banner there in the background. But Matt, I said they got to at least get 4 points out of the 8 possible points. And guess what, Matt? They swept the entire 4-game road trip. So they got all 8 points, and they destroyed Montreal last Monday 8-4. They won a squeaker in a shootout in Toronto 2-1. They won a kind of a fire sale there in Ottawa 5-4. And then, as I mentioned, they took care of the Red Wings yesterday 5-1, Matt. So now they'll come back home for a 3-game road trip, starting with Chicago tomorrow, Pittsburgh on Wednesday, Arizona on Friday. And then they kind of do a home-at-home situation. They'll host the Coyotes on Friday, then go to Arizona on Sunday. And then it's back-to-back with Anaheim the day after that. But, Matt, like I said, they needed to at least get 4 out of the possible 8. 6 would have been nice, but guess what, Matt? They get all 8.
Get all 8, baby. And we were talking about that last week. Like, you got to get those points, man. You got to get the dub. You got to get a point. You can't get out of there without any points. And that's what they did. And that's that championship pedigree, right? Like, you feel that there. That's that they're getting through things. This team has just spent the back half of the season just getting through things, getting through it, and getting to a point where they can start playing good. I don't want to say collective hockey, but the kind of hockey that you can look at and say, that's what a Stanley Cup, that's what the Stanley Cup championship team, defending Stanley Cup championship team should look like. And they're getting back there, and they're getting healthier too. Right. So, and I was actually listening in, cause we can't watch them. And I was listening to, Moj call some, or not listen to Moj. Moj is on the TV now, but whoever's on the call on the radio now, I didn't know the name, just slipped my head. You probably will correct me real quick, but listening to call, and Papa Georgiev, hey, he's making some good saves. He's looking good in there too. It's from what it sounds like. So, yeah, they're rolling. I mean, this is an example of, like, you talk about the sack, right? One Jarbel is hanging a little bit heavier and a little bit lower than the other one. The other one is kind of getting a little sucked up there, but it's good to see. It's good to see the Avs back on track.
Yeah, and now they're up to 86 points, just overtook Minnesota. They do have the same amount of points, but the Avs do have a game in hand on Minnesota, so that it technically moves them up just a spot ahead of the Minnesota Wild. I don't know if you saw the potential goalie fight between St. Louis and Minnesota. I don't know if Jordan Binnington is right in the head, but this dude, after his antics in the series last season against the Avs, and more specifically Nazem Kadri, where Kadri was being interviewed and Jordan Binnington threw a water bottle at him. The old water bottle gate, as it was once called. This dude drops the gloves, wants to fight Marc-Andre Fleury, and Fleury's he's pushing 45 years old, having a great season for the Minnesota Wild this season, keeping him in playoff contention and stuff like that. And I would have liked the refs to let them square up and fight, but they broke it up.
Right, and that, like, the engagement rules of hockey, I thought that's where we were going to go. Like, it looked like they were going to go. I felt the same thing. I was like, let them go. That's what, and I was looking on social media too. That's what everybody was saying. Like, just let them go. But yeah, that Binnington, he just wants to fight. Like, what do you leave the old man alone? Leave Fleury alone.
Well, it would have been awesome if they let him fight. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, Fleury's pushing. He's close to 40s, if not already in his 40s. I don't know what his correct age is, but and then Binnington. I mean, this dude just gave up 5 goals trying to fight, and then he's skating off, pumping up the crowd. Yeah. Come on, dude.
Let him get his ass kicked.
Yeah. So like I said, the Avs are moving up the ranks quickly. You know, the leader in points right now are Vegas and the Kings at 90, and then Dallas at 89. Avs sit right there at 86. So those coveted 8 points that they got on the road, that was huge. So we'll be keeping a track on them as they get back on track after scuffling a little bit in the beginning of this month. And speaking of scuffling, we again, the roommates in the sack, like you mentioned, one's hanging high, one's hanging low. It might be a little cold out still in March, so that could be part of the problem. But yesterday, I was going to say last night's game, but it was sort of a matinee game because they were in New York. These guys over dropping to the. I understand it's a decent East Coast team, Matt. You're on the road. It's a matinee game. These hours are weird.
Yep.
But you had that game, Matt. You had it. You had it. And I don't know what's up with this team. I've seen a lot of people posting since the Bones trade, Matt. That's when this – I'm not saying that he was the glue that was holding everything together, but it may have changed the culture in that locker room. A lot of players disagreed with it. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like Bones, to be honest with you, because I didn't like what he was doing, man. I don't like he was – a second year player complaining about playing time. You just don't do that, especially if you did your research on Michael Malone, Matt. You don't complain about playing time as a young player because it's just going to put you right in the doghouse, which is where fittingly Bones was. They lose to the New York Knicks yesterday, 116-110. They needed that game. I understand it's an East Coast team, but you still needed that game, and they had it. They were outscored. I think it was 10-2 in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter to lose that game. So I don't know, Matt. This team went from like 45-17 to 47-24.
Yeah.
I mean, good thing they're still hanging on. I think it's down to maybe 3.5 games now above Memphis and Sacramento. Sacramento's been winning. Nuggets have been losing. Are you reaching for the panic button now, or are you still kind of hovering your hand above it?
I don't know. Like, for me, the biggest thing that I see with this team, and you hit it too. There's something that switched, something happened around that. Some people are looking at the trade deadline, the Bones trade. Some people are looking at the last game against Memphis when they beat them here, and then that was when Ja Morant did the shotgun willies, shotguns thing, and all that stuff happened. So there's something some people are saying that the Nuggets gave up. And we kind of talked about that last week, how they look like they gave up. They're just ready for the playoffs, and they're fat cats sitting high on the hog. And that's kind of what Michael Malone even said this week. So I just don't the reason why I believed in this team so much, and I felt like that it was championship or bust, and they were going to do it, was because they do this kind of same things. They were doing it in the beginning of the season or during the season when they were winning those games and they were playing well. You would have stretches of defensively where they would look like this. You would have the stretches where that rotation, that second unit did not look as good. They were bad. You'd have to straggle Jamal with them. There was all kinds of things that they were doing. But the biggest thing that they kept doing is they were winning. They were coming out on top of those games. They would win the game like yesterday with the Knicks. They would win the game like they had against Brooklyn here at home. The Spurs game, they would win that game. The Chicago game, they would win games like that. They would be in those situations, but they would win. And like I mentioned earlier with the Avs, they went through their stretch, but they're still winning games, and you can still see that championship pedigree. We're not seeing that anymore with the Nuggets. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. There's something wrong with, like you mentioned, there's some guys liked it. Some guys didn't like Bones. Some guys, there's something off there. And I think Michael Malone, for the first time, and I'm not going to say the first time, but I'm not going to apologize for him. I really do feel like he has a lot to do with what is going on with his team. And it's not schematic. It's not philosophy. It's not what's going on the court. It's whatever else he's doing. He benched Michael Porter Jr. in that game. It was the Brooklyn game. It was maybe the Brooklyn game. Could have been a different one, but he benched him in that third quarter when he was the second best offensive player. Like, there's things like that he keeps doing with players where I thought we were past that, and we still keep doing it. So that I'm putting a lot of this on Michael Malone. He says the right things in the locker or after the game, but I don't know if they're still hearing his message, because it doesn't look like it. When you come out of timeouts, they don't look like they got the message. When you come out of losing a game and you got to get back, and they start so bad in the first quarter, which, yeah, Nuggets, in the past, they come out banging in the first quarter. So I think it's a lot to do with Michael Malone, man. I really do. And I don't know where it fixed. I don't know where it's going to fix. If we just have to wait to get the playoffs and then Nikola and they turn a switch on, I don't know, man. But it's starting to get there. It's starting to get so bad, Mike, that I have changed intros. I have like recorded a couple new intros for you, because our new intro to the show, I'm all hyping the Nuggets, and it sounds horrible. It sounds just as bad when I was talking about Russell Wilson. So I might have to do. That's how bad we are right now. I might have to do another intro, man. I might have to rechange that. We might have to do a whole nother intro.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one who's switching gears on this team. I'm starting to eat words and eat crow, Matt, because a lot of these experts are saying, if the Nuggets ran up against the Clippers or the Lakers or one of these lower seed teams that are either going to advance in the playoff, the play-in, or something like that. Even Golden State, who's the number 7 seed. Minnesota has crept up, Matt, to the 8th seed. Oklahoma City has crept up to the 9th seed. Utah, who was, I don't know where they were supposed to be power ranked this season, Matt, but has crept into the play-in tournament. I'm glad they booted out stupid Lakers, but Lakers are one of those teams that people are saying that, man, if the Lakers matched up against the Nuggets in the playoffs, that's an exit for the Nuggets. I'm not saying that's going to be true, but I'm starting to get a little nervous in the boots, Matt. Start shaking in the boots a little bit. And as I mentioned, they still have a 3.5 lead. This was almost an 8-game lead, Matt.
Right.
Over both. Well, it's been Memphis for the longest time, but now Sacramento has caught Memphis. Both of these teams are 43-27, 3.5 games behind your Denver Nuggets. And I'm glad you brought up Michael Malone, because I wanted to ask you this. I know there's been reports out that saying, first round exit, second round exit, however many exits the Nuggets get, that he's going to be safe. But if you were the Nuggets general manager, owner, whatever, put on your GM hat, what kind of leash would you give Michael Malone? Because I think personally, if they do not make it at least to the Western Conference Finals, that he's getting the boot from me if they don't get to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, you'd have to look at, like, if you're Calvin Booth and you're looking at that and you're thinking who's better than Michael Malone right now that I could get in here. And I think you can get a lot of good coaches to come in and coach this basketball team. But I'd have to agree with you, man. And I hate saying that, because I'd love to see. He's a big part of why this team is where it is, but he's also a big part of why this team where it is now. You mentioned Sacramento, you mentioned Golden State, who, even though they got hammered by Memphis the other day, have been playing some decent basketball. They've been getting back on track. But you mentioned it. Sacramento's playing the best basketball of the season right now for them, and it's getting close to the end of the season. That's where you want to be. You want to be playing your best basketball. But yeah, I tend to agree. If it's anything, if it's not a Western Conference Finals where this team is, if you lose in the Western Conference Finals, yeah, he's safe, he's good. But if you don't even make it there, if it's a first or second round loss, yeah, you serious. I think the hot seat, it becomes flaming, and you really have to have a serious look at if Michael Malone is the right guy in this situation moving forward. Because now you're looking at, and this is the way I look at it from now, and I think a lot of people do too. It's about Nikola Jokic. You want to win with the core that you made, but Tim Conley's gone. That's not that core thing, that core mentality or whatever. That's moved on after since you have the reigning back-to-back MVP. Everything's about Nikola Jokic. Everything's about getting Nikola Jokic a championship. In my eyes, it is. You remember how John Elway, we were all worried about getting John Elway a title before he retires? That's how it is with Nikola Jokic. and it's all about him. So you got to move all your chips to the table to do everything you can to get Nikola Jokic a title. And that's, for me, that's where I'm looking at. Yeah, I'm a Nuggets fan. I want the Nuggets to win. But overall, man, Nikola Jokic, what he's done for this franchise, you got to do your best to put the best around him. And if Michael Malone right now isn't the best, you got to replace him.
Well, yeah, because the coaches are always going to lose that battle.
Always.
And if it was just Nikola Jokic, and for whatever reason the team really liked Michael Malone, say this is what, his almost eighth year coaching this team, something like that. If he was in like his fourth year and you really liked Michael Malone, and it was just Nikola Jokic, pre back-to-back MVPs, you might look to trade Nikola Jokic and go with the head coach. But since you have a quote-unquote big three, quote-unquote big four, if you include Aaron Gordon, MPJ, Jamal Murray, and Jokic, the coach is going to lose that battle. 9.9 times out of 10, they're going to lose that battle, because it's easier to just fire a coach and blame him rather than, trade or what have you, 4 or 5 players. So I give him until the Western Conference Final. And, hindsight 2020, Matt, if maybe the Nuggets should have won the bubble Western Conference Final, which we saw Jamal Murray absolutely play the best basketball. And he's slowly coming back. 25 points in the loss yesterday, Matt. A lot of people saying maybe he shouldn't be playing as much as he is. But if he wasn't, Matt, these losses would look a lot worse than perhaps that they're looking right now. So, and as you mentioned, maybe it's not the philosophy that Michael Malone is implementing in these games. The timeout adjustments. I've seen Nikola Jokic with the clipboard in his hands a bunch of times during these timeouts. So I don't know if that says, man, Nikola Jokic, a leader on and off the court, stuff like that, or if that says Michael Malone's just not getting through to these guys. So maybe Jokic has to grab the clipboard and say, hey, this is what we are running. I don't know how to do a Serbian accent, but that was more
I don't know either. Yeah, that wasn't bad. I felt like what you were saying. Yeah, it's very the rotations, they should be a little bit tighter by now. Now I know you just come in the trade deadline. You got Reggie Jackson, who I don't think he's played in the past 2-3 games. Zeke Naji's supposed to come back, and Chanchar, he hasn't really played in the past couple games either. They're trying to get Thomas or Bryant going, and I don't know if he's gonna translate. So there's a lot of things that right now, coaching wise, Michael Malone, he's got to figure some things out. And again, I don't think it's simple as coming out and saying, okay, we're going to run a zone as opposed to a man when we're playing this kind of team or we're in this situation. I don't think it's that. It's more of they got to draw up more plays or get Michael Porter Jr. the ball. Like he went with 2 touches, I think, in that fourth quarter yesterday. And he's supposed to be, and like I mentioned, that third quarter that they had in that other game against Brooklyn, when he was benched and he seemingly didn't even come back to the fourth quarter. Nikola Jokic at times recently in the stretch where he just doesn't look like he's like you want him to take over the basketball game, and he keeps passing out. And another thing too, I'm sure you've noticed this. There's a lot of things that were happening that aren't happening now. KCP, yeah, he was scoring around the same, but he's not making, like, if you look at the scoring sheet and there's 13 points on the scoring sheet, but he made a big three. Like there was chances for him to make a big three in that game yesterday when Joker was triple covered. You get a 3 out wide open and he misses them. Bruce Brown was missing him some threes, although he had a good game yesterday. There's just a lot of things that were happening earlier that for some reason there's no mojo, there's no vibe, and you can't get him going. You can't get your offense going if you can't get going on the defensive end, though. That's the biggest thing. And in my mind, in my opinion, defense comes from effort. And you can't teach attitude, you can't teach effort. So these guys got to get themselves going. And like I said, that's a lot with Michael Malone. What's the message? What's his message right now? Are they not listening? Is he not giving a message? What?
It's crazy. It's crazy how far the mighty have fallen, I guess is the old adage is, but yeah, it's just sad to see this struggling. And Michael Malone, after one of the losses last week, came out and said, I love that we're going through adversity right now. A lot of the diehards are jumping off the cliff. A lot of them are saying, I'd rather lose now than in the playoffs and stuff. Let's get these bad losses out of the way. But it seems to be the same story after every loss. Second chance points and
rebounding was huge yesterday.
Rebounding and stuff like that. Do you think that? And you brought up Reggie Jackson. I'm glad you did. Hometown kid. Everyone was pumped when his buyout from Charlotte happened and the Nuggets, the news came out that the Nuggets were going to sign him. He chose jersey number 7, just like Chauncey did when he came back for John Elway, stuff like that. And as you mentioned, hasn't played. A bust. He wasn't a trade acquisition, but they got him at the trade deadline because of the buyout, because he got traded from the Clippers to Charlotte in that Mason Plumlee trade. But do you think that they just didn't do enough at the trade deadline? Do you think that kind of messed up the mojo? Thomas Bryant, who was playing pretty decent with the Lakers before the trade happened, he was the guy we gave credit to on LeBron's point when he broke the record for most points in a career in the NBA. He was calling for the ball in the post, but he was playing decent with the Lakers before that trade happened. Now he's been in and out of the lineup on the second unit. Do you think that they didn't do enough at the trade deadline, or they shouldn't have messed with it? And I guess Bones was a big part of that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, man. I really thought that when it comes to Bones, that they would keep him, that they would keep Bones and they would just make him get through it. But no, they straight up got rid of him. And I know they flipped that second rounder and blah, blah, blah. But the Thomas Reed, because they traded, or Thomas Bryant, they traded Javon Reed too, along with that. So, and I know he wasn't getting a lot of run, but I mean, you think about that. What was he's been with this team for a couple seasons, that could, I don't know if that he was a locker room guy. I don't know. But when you look at the trade deadline, yeah, I would think that now looking back on it, that I wish they probably, Booth said, I might have, instead of, getting a buyout with Reggie Jackson, maybe I go and make a trade for somebody else, for a different guard, or go make a trade for a guy instead of wait for this guy to buy out, or I buy out somebody else, or I pick up somebody else. I don't know. I think, like, I don't know what they were thinking when they were going to get Reggie Jackson. I really don't. I don't know if they were thinking they were going to get the Clippers Reggie Jackson from the playoffs a couple of seasons ago, or they were going to get somebody that can come in and do what Monte Morris had. One thing, I'm missing the hell out of Monte Morris right now, though. Like if you think about that, I know we got KCP, Ish Smith and all that stuff, but Monte Morris got us through a lot when we were in these kinds of situations. I don't know if you recall, and Monte Morris stepped up big time for him. I'm missing the hell out of Monte Morris right now.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm missing him, but I was indifferent about Monte, and he made a lot of big shots and a lot of maybe those wide open threes that KCP is missing now. Right. Maybe Monte Morris would hit those. I don't know.
I just feel like because we need somebody that take a hold of that second unit, and they want Reggie Jackson to do it. And Bones was supposed to do it, but like that's what we need. We need somebody to grab a hold of that second unit and really take control of it, because nobody's doing that right now.
And you think that Bruce Brown would be doing that, but he doesn't seem to have the personality. Maybe he's a leader with his play, but he doesn't really seem outspoken. He doesn't really seem like, hey, guys, we're the second unit. We bring the energy off the bench. He doesn't seem like the guy who's going to stand up and say that, which maybe he needs to be that guy. Maybe he's never been that guy. I don't know. I don't know what he was like before, in Brooklyn and his other stops that he made before here, but maybe he needs to be that guy. Bones was kind of outspoken, and I hate bringing it around to Bones because I don't want to get too much on him. But like we mentioned, this kind of sputtering has happened since that trade went down, and kind of shook up that second unit. The starters obviously can't play every single minute, but but you don't want to sprinkle in Jamal Murray, Nikola, MPJ, KCP, what have you, all the time on that second unit. But that's what this team has to do. They have to play Nikola or Jamal at least one of those guys, Aaron Gordon, with the second unit, because there's no true leader on that second unit.
Right. There's not. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like, I don't know if they didn't let Reggie do it. They didn't give him the opportunity to do it, or they're still, they're talking to him. Because another thing too, that Bones has said this, Michael Porter Jr. said this, Christian Brown was even mentioned it. I know he's a rookie, so maybe he doesn't really is entitled to this, but a lot of these guys have all said the same thing. They don't know when they're going to play, if they're going to play, when they're going to come out, when they're going to go in, outside of, Nicole Yoke and the starters like that. But Michael Porter Jr. was saying, I don't know. I don't know my playing time. I don't know when I come in and come out. And then and Bones has said that too. You just want communication, like, hey, you're going to play this long, play that long, whatever. Christian Brown, on the other hand, that's a little different because he's a rookie. But in these other guys' situation, that's when I was hearing that stuff and I was reading that stuff, it made me really start to think about what those are players that, they deserve a little bit more involvement in, especially what's going on with their playing time. But with Michael Malone, so I'm just questioning a lot of the rotation and a lot of things that Michael Malone's doing lately, and I'm wondering if they're listening anymore. That's my biggest takeaway from all this is I'm wondering if this team's reacting, if they're responding to him still, because I'm not suggesting Michael Malone's losing the team, but I don't know if the message is the same or it needs to change or something.
Well, and I'm going to bring up this last point before we move on to some NFL talk here, but I was talking to a Nuggets fan, and he was like, oh, Malone's just messing with the lineups. He can afford to do that when you have this. And this was about a week and a half ago when, the Western Conference was probably at a 6-game cushion, something like that. As we mentioned, is down to 3.5 cushion for the Nuggets above Memphis and Sacramento. But he's like, oh, you have the cushion enough to mix these lineups, interchange guys and stuff like that. And I was like, I guess that's true. But do you want to mess with it? Do you want to mess with the chemistry? Would you rather – I mean, what got you to 45 wins this early in the season, and now they're in – I know they clinched a playoff spot after they won the other day. But do you want to mess with the chemistry, mess with the lineups, or do you want to just keep going with – I mean, if it – the old adage, Matt, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And again, it goes back to maybe they didn't do enough at the trade deadline. Maybe they did too much, and that's what shook up this core. That's what shook up this chemistry, shook up the mojo. Or do you just want to do it with what got you here? What got you that 8-game cushion? Where do you land on that?
Yeah, it's because I feel like, especially after the trade deadline, you got to work. You want to work in Bryant. You want to work in Reggie. And then you want to really solidify that rotation. But if you're Michael Malone, if you're at this point in the season and you're trying to find rotations, then you don't have rotations. Then your second unit's a mess if you're trying to find them. You have a pretty good idea of who's going to go in when, who's going to come out when they're doing this. Like by this point, by this time, you have that. Now, yeah, you're maybe you're fine tuning like maybe a defensive substitution situation where you're late in the game and you want to know who you're going to bring in. Maybe you want to fine tune that, but I feel like you got to have, if you don't have an idea of what your rotation is and you're messing with it this late in the season, that could be possibly bad. And I think it could, you don't trust guys, because that's the biggest thing is you want to be able to trust guys. You want to have your five out there, and then your first 3 or your first, it depends on, and I know the bench is shortened in the playoffs, so you're going to have, you got your 5 starters, and then you're going to have those 3 guys that you trust the most to put in there. And it's not like you're doing wholesale changes when you get into the playoffs. So yeah, I do think you should have a pretty freaking good handle on your rotation by this time of the season. And yeah, if you're fine tuning it, sure. But if you're like rotating 3 or 4 guys still, you don't have a rotation.
Yeah. And I can see both sides of the argument, Matt. I can see, I guess you have a cushion in the West. You can kind of mess with their lineups enough.
Sure.
Or do you just want to go with, I'm more on the side of the fence where you just got to go with what got you here.
Right.
And again, maybe the trade deadline screwed all that up, but if you don't know who's going in where, and I know it depends on matchup, who you're playing and stuff like that.
Sure.
But when you have to play Jamal and Nikola 45 plus minutes because one of those guys needs to play with the second unit, something's wrong, and that's going to get you in trouble come playoff time. So,
we'll big time, man. It's the one thing I will say about the West, real quick before we move on, it's wide open. The one thing the national media and everybody's saying about the West is right, and I think that's why everybody's so quick to name a new Western Conference Finals team. Every single season, every single day, every other day, it feels like I saw the Lakers, the Kings, the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Clippers. Anybody but the Nuggets basically can win the Western Conference. So with the Western Conference being as wide open as it is, I don't think there's any real clean cut, especially now with the Nuggets playing the way they are, team. It's wide open. So I think when you throw that in, that an 8 seed can beat a 1 seed or a 7 can beat a 2, I mean, I wouldn't have said this about the Nuggets, a couple of weeks ago. I think we both would agree on this, but now I could seriously fear that.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens these next couple games. What's on the docket for the Nuggets this week? They will, speaking of the aforementioned Brooklyn Nets, they will play them today, early matinee game, Matt, in Brooklyn. It's a 1:30 Mountain Time game. So another road game. And then, Matt, they have 2 days off. Then they go to Washington, speaking of Monte Morris, and then not another game until Saturday as they embark on a 3-game road trip. 2 of those games, Matt, is the test. If you were to make it to a potential NBA final next Saturday, Matt, Milwaukee, who has overtaken the Eastern Conference lead, and Philadelphia. So you'll have the matchup of again, the 2 big men, Joel Embiid, who I cannot stand. I do not like that man. I know he's leading the NBA in scoring, but just when you're crying about not getting MVPs, and I know the Nuggets have choked in the playoffs these recent years, but when you're crying about not winning MVPs and then choking in the playoffs as well, just shut up, dude. Just shut up.
Philly hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
Philly has not done anything, and they should have done a lot of things. They had Jimmy Butler.
I was just about to say that Jimmy Butler team probably should have won a little bit more than they did. But those are 2 big tests, Matt, 2 big juggernauts in the East. So that's what's on tap for the Denver Nuggets. All right. Couple NFL moves already happened this morning, Matt, and both of them involve the Houston Texans as they trade wide receiver Brandon Cooks to the Dallas Cowboys for a couple of draft picks. Cowboys are, I don't want to say in a bit of a flux, Matt. They released Zeke Elliott, so it's going to be weird if a team signs him and he's not wearing a. Do you know what Ezekiel Elliott's last play as a Cowboy was? It's pretty sad,
isn't it?
He snapped the ball.
That fake. I think it was going to be some kind of a hook and ladder kind of a situation.
Stupid. Snaps
he got
the
blown
ball
up on that play too.
Snaps the ball to Dak and then just gets trucked over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the play went for like 2 yards, and then that was it. That was the end of Zeke's career in Dallas. So he gets released. But anyway, back to today. We'll get into the moves in the past week here in a second. So the Cowboys acquire Brandon Cooks from Houston, and then minutes later, Matt, Houston gives Larry Tunsil, the big left tackle, a 3-year, $75 million extension with $50 million guaranteed. And so, yeah, the Texans are in the news this morning, but the Texans are going to be the Texans and not do much. And your boy's in the news again, and that is Aaron Rodgers. He came out last Thursday with a list of demands. Otherwise, he was going to kill a bunch of hostages. And, he's saying, I'll go to the Jets if they bring in these guys. I don't know, Matt. He's pretty pissed. I was going to say that I was sick of the Aaron Rodgers news the last couple years on the potential of joining the Broncos. I'm like, dude, just get it over with. Just end it. And now he's doing it to the Jets. And I know you're a big, obviously, Green Bay guy, Aaron Rodgers guy. And then they go and lose Robert Tonyan as he signs with the division rival Bears. So if Aaron Rodgers leaves the NFC North, Matt, he's the Bears' daddy.
Right.
What's going to happen if he leaves the division?
that division
Wide
gets
open.
wide open. You want to
is it
look
big?
at the Lions and say, okay, they're the last, and then the Vikings even.
I was about to say, is this if I guess if and when, I don't know, even I couldn't name you the Packers GM, but he came out and
Gutekunst.
he basically said that Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back. Aaron Rodgers basically said he's not coming back. I don't know if it's all the mushrooms he ate with Jake Plummer. I don't know what it is, but is this Kirk Cousins' division now to lose, or is it Jared Goff's, or is it Justin Fields? I mean, let's not count the Packers out right away
I was just gonna say, yeah,
with Jordan Love, I guess.
give
I mean,
them the love, baby.
This is to me, if Aaron Rodgers leaves, this is a wide open division because let's face it, I think the Vikings will win the division, but there's not going to be a close second. I mean, there's going to be a close second, and I don't want to say it's Kirk Cousins to lose either, but he becomes the best quarterback in that division.
Right? Yeah, he is. He's got to be that. Yeah, because Jared. Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to see what the Lions do. Like I said, I'm not counting out the Packers. Other than the Packers, obviously, we got to see what Jordan Love looks like. But the tools are there. Now you're going to see really what Matt LaFleur, what his offense looks like. You're going to see that smash mouth. You're going to see a lot of different things. A lot. I mean, I'm curious. I'm really excited / curious to really see what Jordan Love and that pack. So I'm not going to count them out. But if I would have to pick a team other than the Packers, I'm the Lions. Just because I like DMC there, or what is it? What is it? DCMC? What do they call him? The Dan Campbell.
I don't know what they call him.
Don't they have like a DCMC? Anyway, I really like what he's got going on there with Detroit, and Detroit's been bad for so long. I mean, you're a Bears fan. We've both seen how bad they are. So, but it'd be curious to see. I would say I would like to see Detroit, but the Vikings are the ones that you look at right away. And see that they're the ones that can overtake that. But that's a great question. And then the Bears, with all these freaking draft picks and then they're acquiring these receivers, and they might even require a couple more receivers. Who knows by when it's all said and done, a couple receivers from our football team might be over there on that football team. So you never know. But yeah, it's a wide open division, man. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun.
Well, here's the list of demands that Aaron Rodgers put out there. And the Jets already did one of them as they traded for Allen Lazard or signed him. And the other ones include Randall Cobb, who's, again, pushing 45 years old. Mercedes Lewis, I think he's right up there, pushing 45 years old. And OBJ is on that list of demands. So all receiving targets. And the Jets crossed one of them off the list as they got Allen Lazard. And I don't know if you heard Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show, the BFFs together, saying, one of the most important people to me is Nathaniel Hackett, which is now clear that the Broncos brought Hackett in for one reason only. They had to go with Plan B because, again, I don't know if it's the psychedelics in the mud tent with Aaron Rodgers, with Jake Plummer, but decided to go back to the Packers the last 2 years that he's kind of hamstringing the Broncos. But Jets got one of those things off the list. What do you make of this whole situation anyway, generally?
Man,
Is it gonna happen?
I'll be 100% honest. I love Aaron Rodgers. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, top 5 quarterback for me in all time. But I have been extremely annoyed by all this. It has been very entertaining, but I'm kind of like you, like, God, just get over it already. Let's just do it. But I'm entertained by it. I'm going to watch it. I think it's hilarious, but it is annoying. I'll be honest. This whole I didn't know. I thought he was going to retire. I really did. But then I heard the Packers come out. Gutekunst was doing all this stuff. And then they're trying to do the trades and all this stuff. And I knew when Rodgers gets back, he's going to be pissed. He's going to be grumpy about all this. Sure enough, he was ticked off about it. He didn't like it. So now he's going to come back. And now he's going to come back. He's going to play with the Jets. But yeah, when Rodgers said the Nathaniel Hackett crap, I wanted to throw my phone because I was watching my phone. I wanted to throw my phone across the room because it just tells you again the only the situation that the Denver Broncos are in right now you can totally solely point the finger at Aaron Rodgers and blame him because he didn't come here. Because the only reason why they hired the damn Nathaniel Hackett was to get Aaron Rodgers here. That's it. And then Rodgers goes off and says that you don't know nothing if you think that Nathaniel Hackett's not a good football coach, blah, 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 blah. His football mind, blah, 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 blah. Well, then why the hell didn't you come and play quarterback for him last season? Like, that's what I don't understand, Aaron. So he pissed me off pretty good on that little interview especially when he talked about the damn Broncos BS. So now I got to go watch another one of my favorite quarterbacks go and play for the freaking Jets, which pissed me off again. So I was a little bit, grumpy about that whole deal. But overall, I'm glad it's going to be over. It's still not over because they're still trying to trade him. But there's looking at compensation. And also, too, I don't know if you saw this, but they're looking at it. It doesn't have to be a first-round pick or a first-day pick, that they'll accept a second-day pick. And then what the Broncos gave up for Russell Wilson last year, and now you look at, is Russell Wilson, have you seen that stuff too? Then that'll get you more depressed if you're a Broncos fan.
Yeah, it's all craziness. And and I don't know if you saw this report, but in 2043, Matt, Jordan Love will be demanding a trade to the New York Jets. So it's a long lineage of Packer quarterbacks going to the New York Jets.
When Packers quarterbacks grow up, they become New York Jets, I guess.
Yeah, after their 20-year Packer career, Jordan Love will be playing for the New York Jets in 2043. Some of the moves that happened over the last week, Matt, as I mentioned, Robert Tonyan goes to the Chicago Bears, which leaves basically the Packers without a tight end because Mercedes Lewis is also a free agent. Former Bronco offensive lineman Graham Glasgow heading back to the Detroit Lions, almost said Tigers, to the Detroit Lions. Don't know if you saw this big offensive line shift as Orlando Brown goes to Cincinnati from Kansas City. So a lot of teams who played each other in the couple of the recent Super Bowls are switching teams. And now the Chicago Panthers acquire PJ Walker from the Panthers. They've gotten the Panthers backup running back. They've gotten DJ Moore, and now they've gotten PJ Walker. So they've gotten 3 Panthers this offseason. So they are doing their best to PJ. If you see PJ Walker playing, it's not good news if you're a Chicago Bears fan. I'll just say that. Miles Sanders is on the move as well. Philadelphia, I'm a little bit shaken in the boots if you're a Philadelphia fan. Jason Kelce did report that he's going back, but Carolina Panthers signed Miles Sanders. I was surprised it was only for a one-year deal, Matt.
Yeah, he's a little older, so I can, but he was pretty good last year, and he has been good with that team with Philly.
This was a big move. Speaking of Detroit, man, Jamal Williams goes to the New Orleans Saints.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Saints fan, you're a little excited. They get Derek Carr. They're keeping Jameis Winston. If you see Jameis Winston playing, it's probably not a good thing, but he's as a backup, he's pretty good, I guess. They get Jamal Williams. I don't know what Alvin Kamara's situation is, but they have him on the roster as well. And then, don't know if you saw this kind of squeaked through the cracks, man, and that's they give Michael Thomas a 1-year deal.
Yep.
So I don't know what's going to go on there, but there you go. And some wide receiver shifts here. Juju heads to the Patriots, and Tampa Bay signs Tampa Bay now. I guess Brady was the glue that held everything together, Matt, because now they signed Baker Mayfield. Right. They released Leonard Fournette and Cameron Brate, 2 big offensive pieces. So, Panthers division to win, is that blasphemy?
And they have the number 1 pick. They could move that around and acquire more. I think it might be the Saints.
Yeah,
I do like the Saints in that division. In Atlanta, what are they? Who's their quarterback?
They signed.
Ritter?
Oh well,
is it going to be Desmond Ritter?
They just signed a veteran, and I forgot who it is.
Who did they did? Who did they? Was it Jacoby?
No.
Where did he go?
Heineke. They signed Heineke.
Oh, Taylor Heineke. Okay. All right. So Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke.
Reports are they'll be battling for the starting position. So.
Yeah, man. Hey, That's interesting. I do like the Saints there, but Atlanta, because Atlanta was kind of doing some things here without really any semblance of wanting to be good. So that could be curious. But I think I would look at the Saints and then whatever what Carolina does with that number one pick.
So, and then Philadelphia came out and said, and even Darius Slay's Twitter said goodbye Philly, something like that. And then literally hours later, Schefter comes out and says they didn't technically release Darius Slay, and they actually re-signed him. So
they got cold feet there.
Yeah, he was not released, and I think you even tweeted out say good fit, opposite PS2. That would have been
because they were Because there's a lot of that. Because who's over there? Didn't Darby just didn't they release Darby?
Yeah, so PS2 and Darius Slay would be fighting on who would wear number 2. So that's what you got. Speaking of the NFC North, Matt, we mentioned the Lions get rid of Jamal Williams. They actually bring in David Montgomery, former Bear. And then the Bears went on to bring in Travis Homer, who had a decent year as the backup in Seattle. So there's some running backs switching around in the NFC North. The Carolina Panthers also brought in Andy Dalton, Matt, because Sam Darnold goes to the San Francisco 49ers. PJ Walker goes to the Bears. So now Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, is the man in Carolina right now. And again, they may use that number 1 pick now for a quarterback, or is Andy Dalton the guy?
Man, that's curious. That's curious. I think I think that number when we talked about Houston today, I think it all depends on if Houston wants they want the Alabama quarterback. I think that's what's going to depend on everything. If they want him that bad, they're going to jump up there and get that and go after him. Because otherwise, I think Carolina's going to take him.
There you go. And the other cornerback in Philadelphia, James Bradbury, is staying with the Eagles. So maybe that's why they got cold feet, because that was a pretty good dynamic duo back there for the Eagles. And this is the move, Matt, that you called. You called this one last week, Matt, last Tuesday to be exact. Samaje Perine is coming to the Denver Broncos. He could start the season as a starter until Javante's 100%, but that's a pretty good duo when Javante gets right. And Samaje Perine, he's a pretty good serviceable back, Matt. And this stat is crazy. 5th year in the league, Matt, only 2 fumbles.
Right.
Both of those fumbles, Matt, his rookie year. So he's gone 4 years without fumbling the ball.
And he's set behind Joe Mixon. He had to sit behind Joe Mixon for a little bit, and he didn't get the full share of the backfield there. And whenever Joe Mixon got hurt, and it was Perine's backfield, holy smokes, that dude went off. I love this signing. I think it's going to be, they're going to like it. If Bronco fans don't know who this guy is or what he can do, they're going to love Samaje Perine. They're going to love this cat. And I think he's going to be huge in this Sean Payton offense.
And I want to say he scored 2 touchdowns in the AFC title game. He may have scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl as well. And then, so, Indianapolis Colts trade Stephon Gilmore to the Dallas Cowboys. That happened last week as well.
Right.
So now you got Diggs and Gilmore as the 2 cornerbacks in Dallas. Pretty good duo in the defensive backfield. As we mentioned, Allen Lazard gets a 4-year, $44 million deal with the New York Jets. So that's one thing crossed off Aaron Rodgers' list there, as we just talked about. And how about this story that popped up last week? Kelsey Plum, pretty good, attractive WNBA player for the Las Vegas Aces, gets married to now former Raiders tight end Darren Waller, and then the Raiders go ahead and trade him to the New York Giants. So Darren Waller is out of the AFC West. Derek Carr out of the AFC West. But you still have Patrick Mahomes in the AFC West. Jimmy Garoppolo's now in the AFC West. Obviously, this is still the Chiefs' division to lose, but I mean, is second place anybody's now?
Yeah, I think so. Because you don't know what you're going to have with the Chargers yet, because they still have the same coach.
Eckler wanted to get out.
Staley did last year. You still can guarantee that Chargers going to Charger. What we just want to know, and the Raiders are going to Raider, right? You know, Josh Jacobs is already pissed off. I don't know if you saw his tweet after they traded Waller. It was like I can't remember exactly what it was, but he's pissed off. He's on the franchise tag there. The Raiders are going to Raider, Chargers are going to Charger. We just hope the Broncos don't Bronco. That's all.
I mean, obviously Josh McDaniels loves Jimmy Garoppolo. Was with him in New England. And so he knows what that guy's all about. It's all about injuries for Jimmy G. Can he come back from them? Can he be the guy? Because there was a lot of pressure of him in San Francisco with Trey Lance breathing down his neck.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of glad that Jimmy G's out of that situation, because now I guess there's some pressure on him of being the guy in Vegas, but at least he has a coach that he knows. At least he doesn't have a first-round pick breathing down his neck. So maybe the pressure's off of him. He can just go out and play loose and free, I guess.
You know, and then also too, like you mentioned it, he's the man. He gets to be the man, and that might be a bad thing in Vegas. Good looking single guy like that in freaking Vegas, the face of the Vegas franchise.
I just hope Kelsey Plum stays faithful to Darren Waller. That's all I got to say.
Oh boy. Look the hell out, Vegas. Jimmy Garoppolo's in town, baby.
That's crazy. And then the Vegas Raiders also bring in Jacoby Myers from the New England Patriots. So Jimmy G's got some good weapons minus Darren Waller. Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams is still there. So, and as you mentioned, Josh Jacobs. So we'll see how he plays being pissed off. So that's a little bit to keep an eye on as well.
Do we call the Raiders the desert Patriots now?
The Desert Pats.
The Desert
I
Pats.
think that's safe. And then a day after our show last week, Matt, Draymond Jones, former Bronco defensive tackles, takes his talents to the Seattle Seahawks. They released Shelby Harris as well, who was part of that Russell Wilson trade. And this happened also after our show, Matt, that the Broncos signed Zach Allen to replace Draymond Jones. Obviously, they were looking to move on from him. They bring Zach Allen in on a 3-year, $45.75 million deal. He had a pretty decent season alongside J.J. Watt down there in Arizona. And then the Broncos also re-signed Alex Singleton, which was a huge pickup, led the team in tackles last year as well. They also brought in tight end Chris Manhertz. And I completely understand if you've never heard of this guy before, coming over from the Jacksonville Jaguars, more of a, I want to say a blocking tight end. I don't.
Oh yeah, big time.
That's
why you never heard of him.
Yeah, I think he has like 4 career touchdowns in 6 years. So, what'd you make of Zach Allen, Alex Singleton, and Chris Manhertz? All those happened on the same day last week.
It shows you that the Broncos, what they've done this year is they filled needs through free agency. That's it. They filled needs through free agency. They filled in the tight end or the offensive line needs, and then they re-sign a defensive player that they needed to keep. They get a new one defensive player goes out. They get another one in to replace him. So what they're doing is exactly what they should be doing through free agency because they have no draft picks. So I love it. I enjoyed. I liked it. I give them. If you want me to give them a grade, I'd give them like an A. I'd give them an A. I enjoyed what they did. That Pirine pickup, man, that was huge for me. For me. And then don't forget about Jarrett Stidham. Yeah,
that was a question mark in a lot of people's books. You know, as you saw some of these backups only get, $6 million, something like that. The Colts actually signed Gardner Minshew for around $6 million. Is he going to be the starter in Indianapolis? Who knows? I think they're still trying to get Phillip Rivers on the phone. And we saw Marcus Mariota go to Philly to be Jalen Hurts' backup. So a lot of these guys shifting places. Yeah, Jarrett Stidham. I don't know if you've listened to local radio here in Denver. A lot of guys are saying, and I think we've brought it up that the Broncos have an out in Russell Wilson's contract after this year. It won't be as much of a cap hit if they were to just flat out release him after this season, Matt, and then prepare the future for Jarrett Stidham. And also reports are that Sean Payton really wanted this guy in New Orleans. really was high on this guy coming out of the draft. So, I mean, are we in trouble if Stidham's the starter moving forward?
Apparently not. I guess Sean Payton wanted. I mean,
Only two career.
I heard that too.
career
I heard
games
that same
played.
thing too. And I because we were talking about last week that we were thinking that they were going to sign like a vet, like somebody that if Russ screws up, it's like, all right, we're going to go with this guy because he can, And is Stidham a vet? I don't think so. I don't think he's a vet. I think he's still a developmental type of deal. He was in a good franchise with the Patriots. I don't know if he got any better over there with Josh McDaniels. That game he played against the San Francisco, was it San Francisco when he had like it was like coming down to the end, he made that pass. So he's got some tools, he's got some stuff there. And if hey, it's freaking Sean Payton. If Sean Payton wants this guy, that's the biggest thing with these people coming in here. This isn't George Payton over here. Like, I want this guy. Okay, Sean, you're going to have this guy and play. Nah, this is George Payton and Sean Payton. Probably maybe a little bit more Sean Payton saying, hey, I want these guys. Let's get these guys. It's not, we're going to get these guys and then here, you can play with them. He's getting the guys that he wants, and you can freaking tell. You could tell he's got a type. He's got that butthole, that mean, that grungy looking type that he's got, and he's getting all those types of guys here. So it's finally good to see with a coach that has that kind of, we're used to seeing that around here, from back in the past with Shanahan, I guess.
Yeah. So we'll see. And again, I think if Stidham, maybe they're preparing the future for Stidham, but if he's your starter going forward, I'm a little bit hesitant in believing in this guy. But like you said, if Sean Payton believes in him, I guess I have no other option.
See, I thought that it was a situation that, okay, we don't sign a veteran guy. If Russ sucks, then we suck too, and we got our first round pick next year.
Well, they still can do what they did last year. They had Rippon, a younger guy like Stidham, as the backup, and then they put Josh Johnson on the practice squad. That still could be an option, and hell, it might even be Josh Johnson once again.
Talking about Josh Johnson, the NFC quarterback, the NFC championship guy that was playing quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to call it playing quarterback, you can tell he has. I
was watching something and they were talking about how this guy was on the Broncos staff and then he's playing with the 49ers in the playoff game in the NFC championship game. And I'm like, that's some crazy NFL stuff right there.
Yeah. I mean, going from practice squad, hasn't played in I don't know how many years, to having to play in the NFC title game. I felt bad for him because you could tell he was just not ready.
No, he wasn't.
He couldn't call blitzes, stuff like that. And maybe it was a protection. I don't know, but you might see him back on the practice squad. Who knows? They might bring in a vet to just sit there hanging behind Stidham too. So, I mean, if Stidham becomes a starter, you're going to need somebody behind him. And a lot of people were hoping it was a Winston type, a Mariota type, but both of those guys are locked up now, as we mentioned, Mariota with Philly and Jameis back with the New Orleans Saints. So, and as Anthony said, crazy to think that Sam Darnold might be the starter. He said 48ers, but he corrected it, said 49ers. But
48ers, I like that.
I mean, if Sam Darnold's your starter, they might go down a notch to become the 48ers. So,
yeah, because they got Purdy. They got to figure out what they're going to do with him.
Well, I think if Purdy's 100% healthy, do you give him the reins or do you let him and Trey Lance battle it out?
I think it's a mix of him and Trey Lance battling it out. I would even go so far as to be like it's Trey Lance and Purdy back up.
I don't want to say you mortgage your future on Trey Lance, but number one pick.
Yeah. I mean, you got to see what you have because you did not get enough in the sample size that you had. You have to know for sure if he is or he isn't.
Yeah. So good luck, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch trying to figure that out.
It's kind of a nice problem to have, though. I mean, if you think about it, though, it's a tough one, but it's a nice one.
And I honestly don't know where Sam Darnold fits in, I guess, insurance, because both of those guys are coming off injuries.
He's a camp arm, Mike.
I mean, they gave him a pretty hefty deal for a year.
I know. It makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder if they're are they gonna trade Trey Lance?
Could be an option. I mean,
if they do that, but what is Trey Lance worth at this point?
Well, And we don't know the contract details. Maybe if Trey Lance or Brock Purdy is the guy, you could just outright release Sam Darnold. Maybe that's somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe that's what that probably sounds. That's probably about what they're more doable.
Yeah, I mean that. Obviously, we don't know the entire contract details, but that could be into it. That could be what the San Francisco 49ers, possible 48ers, are gonna do. So, yeah, a lot of movement in the NFL, Matt. Maybe next week we'll get more into what these divisions look like with all of these people on the move. We kind of got into the NFC North. If and when Aaron Rodgers leaves, is it the Vikings division to lose? Is Kirk Cousins becomes the best quarterback in that division? And we kind of touched on the AFC West. Obviously, if you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, Matt, you're going to be atop the division no matter what. But who comes in second in the AFC West now? That's up for grabs with all these.
Yeah, big time.
With Jimmy G going to Vegas, and like you mentioned, the Chargers might Charger, Broncos might Broncos. So,
and then the AFC South too. Is Jacksonville going to take a huge step there?
Well, and low key, Calvin Ridley coming back from his suspension too. So
low key, bro.
Trevor Lawrence has another target.
I think Jacksonville could shock some people because and where's Tannehill going to end up too? He's still kind of out there.
I mean, is he? Yeah. Will Tennessee bring him back? Really quickly before we get out of here, not a lot of people thought the Broncos had all this money to spend, man. Over $250 million dished out in the first couple of days of free agency. Bears were a close second, Matt. Close to $200 million dished out, and they had one of the most cap space. They brought in a lot of defense, Matt. They brought in a couple offensive pieces for Justin Fields. I thought they would have targeted better offensive line play, Matt. They might draft the guy. They obviously traded that number 1 pick, but they might draft an offensive lineman with they have the 9th overall pick now they got from Carolina. I thought they'd give Justin Fields more offensive line help.
They were in on McGlinchey, weren't they?
I think so. I think that was one of the guys they wanted.
You think they'll get in on a trade for that tackle from Cincinnati since they signed Orlando Brown?
They could. I hope Justin Fields gets some protection, because if he doesn't, Matt, he's not going to make it to year 3.
No, he's going to be running for his life.
Yeah. So, I mean, the offensive targets help, but it doesn't help when you don't have time to throw it. So, and yeah, we'll see, Matt. We'll get into divisions more next week. Kind of ran out of time this week. No, this date in Jersey this week. So we were going to call it an early show, and you could tell my nose is starting to not let me talk anymore. So
I can hear it. I've been doing pretty good. I had a cough a couple times, but I've been doing pretty good.
I mean, you would think that drinking a gallon of Dayquil before the show started would have helped, or at least kicked in by now. But I guess not. But that's going to do it for us here on Elevation 5280 Sports on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe, like, and follow all of the social media platforms. You can follow Matt on Twitter at MattMascarenas1. Always putting out clever tweets. I don't tweet as much. I just retweet stuff. And you can follow me at Michael Spillane. Follow Elevation at 5280 Sports Radio. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well at 5280 Sports Radio. We try to keep everything the same. You can go and like the Rocky Mountain Sports Network on Facebook, as the title says so itself. And make sure you go and like that Instagram page as well. And that is at Rocky Mountain SN, MTN SN, had to abbreviate there, and follow all the Twitter pages, as I mentioned, RM Sports Network, and all of us here at Elevation 5280 Sports as well. But that's going to do it for us, Matt. Anything you're getting into this week?
I'm going to go play golf today, and then it's spring break for the boys. So it's going to be I hope they're not sick. Otherwise, it's going to be a long week.
Yeah. And I don't know what's going around, man, but maybe
everybody's getting it. Everybody's getting something. It's crazy.
That C19 is like poking its head behind the wall and saying, "I'm back."
Yep, 2023. I'm here still.
All right. Yeah, it sucks, but it's almost here. Opening day in a couple of weeks, man. How about that?
Let's go. I'm ready for some baseball.
You watched that USA Venezuela game last night.
That was a good. Then they have to come back when they up like 5-2, and then they have to come back or something.
Oh man, and Trey Turner, man, that guy's the beast.
Bombs.
Come back home run to give USA the win. So they're moving on to the semifinals, and I forget who they're playing, but that was a cool game. Went bowling last night, Matt, watching the game on the big screen. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So there you go. That's going to do it for us for the second time I've said that here on Elevation 5280 Sports on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. For Matt Mascarenas, I'm Michael Spill. We will talk to you next week.